So yeah, we're gonna do the review. I wrote down some notes, and Kate, you're free to chime in if you have anything
Okay.
else to add. So I guess like the first thing I want to start out with is addressing the big question of which one's better. Oh, thank you for the host, Nerdheart. Which one's better, Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask? And I came up with like a whole bunch of reasons for why I think Majora's Mask. I can say with certainty now, the Majora's Mask is the better game, and I have a few reasons for that. But first, I do want to point out what is actually better about Ocarina of Time. Um, I think Ocarina of Time has a longer main quest. There's a total of 3 dungeons when you're Kid Link, and then as Adult Link, I think it's 5 dungeons. Is it? Am I right
Yeah,
about
so
that?
8 total.
So a total of 8 dungeons. Whereas this game has a total of 4 main dungeons, and then you have like a final dungeon.
Yeah, you've
Um,
also got you got Ganon's Castle as your final dungeon in Ocarina.
exactly.
But that watch you say 9 in that one, 5 in this one.
Yeah, so that's like at least 4 more dungeons. Also, real quick, I should mention something about the difficulty about the games. Since you're actually completing more dungeons in Ocarina of Time, you can more easily gain health containers. Because after you complete a
Yeah.
dungeon, then you get a full health container. Whereas in this game, you only have 4 dungeons, so that's only 4 heart containers to add to your total. So in order to make up for that, they have a lot more pieces of heart scattered around the world for you to collect. So that's like a lot more stuff to find on your own, which adds to the challenge. And if you don't get those pieces of heart, you're gonna have a much more challenging time playing the game. The other thing that is worth pointing out is Ocarina of Time was the first 3D Zelda game, and so because of that, it's inevitably going to have a lot of nostalgic value for a lot of people, including myself, because that was the first. Not only was it the first 3D Zelda game I ever played, it was the first Zelda game I played. Period. So it has like a warm place in my heart, so to speak. And warm fuzzy nostalgia. Whatever is the first game you ever played is almost always gonna be your favorite, right? Almost
Yeah.
always. But with that said, objectively speaking, and as I play these games back to back now, Majora's Mask is the better game, and it's for a couple of reasons. Let's be honest, like no one really plays Zelda for those stupid dungeons. Those dungeons are cramped, they're dark, they're depressing, and most of the time they're labyrinthian. Um, so like what do we play Zelda for? We play Zelda for the adventure, the exploration. It's for the world. That's the whole point of Zelda. It's a non-linear experience. And the dungeons, yeah, they're there. They're mostly there though as like a test, an examination of your skills to see what you've learned so far. But really, in my opinion, the most fun about Zelda is what we're doing right now. Adventuring, searching, exploring things, and there's more to do in this game in reference to that than there is in Ocarina of Time. There are just so many side quests, and part of what makes the game so enjoyable are also the rewards. It's one thing if you have like a whole bunch of side quests, but if you don't have good rewards, then well, it's not going to be satisfying at all. And what this game introduced was a whole section on masks, and these are probably the best rewards you can get for completing side quests. In Ocarina of Time, the best reward you could get in that game were pieces of heart, you know, which is, kind of a good reward, but, it's kind of offset by the fact that the game is, in my opinion, kind of relatively easy. I mean, it can be challenging on the first try, but I actually think this game is even more challenging. But this game gives
Probably
you...
the timer.
Hmm?
Probably the timer.
Yeah, the timer also adds to the challenge. I'll get into that in just a second. Um, all these masks, uh, they're not only do they just look cool, a lot of them look cool, but a lot of them have really cool abilities too. Not the least of which, these transformation masks. I think the transformation masks add so much depth to the game. In fact, when I first played this game, I think that was my favorite part of the game. The fact that you could transform into other forms, and that would immensely add depth to the gameplay. Because, you know, like with Goron Link, you could just roll around forever. Zora Link, you can swim like a fish. You know, the worst thing in Ocarina of Time, you know what it was, right? It was swimming. That was the worst thing in that fucking game. It was awful. But in this game, swimming is actually fun. You move around like a dolphin, and you can walk around on the bottom of the ocean without those heavy fucking steel boots that make you move like you're moving through molasses. In this, you actually walk underwater at the same speed as you do on land with Zora Link. And even Deku Link is kind of cool. He looks kind of cute, and he can also cut through enemies pretty quickly.
He can jump. He can jump across the water if you don't feel like swimming.
Exactly. He can stand on those lily pads and things like that. So he has advantages. I'm gonna go into a little bit about Twilight Princess and how the transformations in that game did not work out, or I should say transformation. But before I get into that, I do want to touch upon what you just mentioned, Kate, about the 3-day time limit. You know, that was like a big criticism about this game. I don't really know why. I mean, because like if you hear about the 3-day time limit, it makes the game sound really bad. It feels like you're being pressured all the time, and that's just simply not the case. It does add to the challenge, like if you're playing through it and you're in a dungeon and you know it's like you're on the 3rd day. It does add to the anxiety that you're inevitably gonna feel. But I don't believe it ever was a problem, because it can always be addressed. You can always slow down time, and you can also reverse time, which saves your game. So as long as you parse out your days to do certain tasks on specific days, you're good to go. You know, I really don't see that as a valid complaint at all. So the other thing I want to talk about is the story. I think the story in Majora's Mask is so much better. There's just the main antagonist is Skull Kid. I mean, you could say it's Majora's Mask, but you know, it's really Skull Kid. And the reason why he's such a good antagonist is because he's not so cliche like Ganon is. Ganon is just kind of your run-of-the-mill, everyday antagonist, you know. And because of that, Ocarina of Time's story, if you really get down into it, it really is just go save the world, and everything else is window dressing. It's just told in a nice way, in a way that's pleasant to view. Whereas this game genuinely has a good story, because Skull Kid is a dynamic character. He's not like so two-dimensional. You know, they show his backstory in an unobtrusive cutscene where, you know, he was fighting with his friends, and then he was left alone. Now he's all lonely. Then he befriends 2 fairies, and then they're having a good time. And then he comes across the Majora's Mask, and it overwhelms him with power, and then he turns evil. You know, it's so compelling. It's so interesting to me, much more so than Ganon from Ocarina of Time. Speaking of the story, you know, the game has a very creepy atmosphere. And like you mentioned before, Kate, it's creepy in a way that feels natural rather than forced. You know, even the intro sequence, you know, everything is playing out with this kind of happy-go-lucky music, but it has like a tinge of something being off. And then right at the end, the screen pans and you see the giant moon in the sky. And that moon is always there. It's always kind of like haunting you whenever you're playing the game. You know, there was one time when Kate was just playing the game, and then she randomly looked up and saw the moon hovering in the sky, and she was genuinely frightened by that. You know, it's stuff like that. You know, it always being there and haunting you. That's really cool and adds to the authenticity of its creepy atmosphere. Now, really quickly, I do want to compare this game to Twilight Princess, because I feel like that game, you know, it's not a bad game, but like it feels like an inferior version of this game. You know, it's trying to be like this game, but fails miserably. The The reason is because a couple of reasons. It tries to do the transformations, but it only has one transformation as opposed to three in this game, and that one transformation, its abilities are like cheap. Like it doesn't really enhance Link's latent abilities. It just gives him like contrived abilities where he can like jump up to certain platforms that he normally couldn't, but it's only in certain areas. It's not something that you can use anytime you want. And also, the combat in that game is easy as fuck. It's so easy that you can use the Wiimote to waggle your way through the game, and it doesn't matter because combat's easy. Whereas in this game, it's pretty challenging. And also, it tried to be creepy but failed miserably. It's hard to really explain why it failed, but you know, this game, it totally nailed the creepy factor. Whereas Twilight Princess, I guess you could say it's more dark than creepy, but this game's both, and it did it in a way that actually makes sense. And then finally, I just want to mention the graphics briefly, and the music. The music's fantastic. I think, Kate, you said that you actually prefer the music in this game over Ocarina of Time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I have to agree. Especially like the main theme. It's you know, like every game has like the Hyrule theme, and you know that's good and all. But like the main theme in this, it's so like memorable. You know, like anytime I hear that music, I instantly think Majora's Mask. You know, like in any other game, I can't even tell you, like, if I heard the music, it would remind me of that game. I might recognize that it's a Zelda game, but I may not know exactly which Zelda game it is. Whereas in this game, like, the tracks are just, they're so perfect, and they fit in so well. And about the graphics, to the uninitiated, this game might actually look, like, identical to Ocarina of Time, but they did make a whole bunch of improvements to it.
Yeah, the flipping.
Exactly, yeah.
With the expansion pack.
Yeah, the game required the expansion pack. And the flipping was really cool. Like whenever you're jumping from platform to platform, he'll do either somersaults or he'll flip or do cartwheels, which they removed in subsequent games, and I don't know why. I mean, it just made him feel more acrobatic and cool. Added more frames of animation and things like that. Also, they added some pathfinding to the characters that also helped enhance the believability of the characters. You know, it makes them feel less two-dimensional, less wooden. They run errands throughout the day. At this time, on this day, this guy is gonna walk into this post office and do something. You know, like it's like they're alive. Whereas in Ocarina of Time, you know, they're just kind of playing out a predefined animation. You know, as opposed to.
Get ready to go into the milk bar, by the way.
Okay. Whereas in this game, it's like they are just carrying out their day-to-day lives, and that's really cool. It makes me love it even more. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Is there anything else you want to add, Kate?
I think you covered it.
All right. So that's the review. All right, let's go to the milk bar.